everybody was talking at the same time, and we were like laughing and it was really loud. And then as soon as mom said, "You have to be quiet," not even we were quiet. We had to leave it. What happened was we actually remember that as soon as mom said, "Hey, look at everybody," as soon as mom said what everyone like said. And at least you get all the comments. I know. Isaac. Yeah, we're not doing it ever. I lost the game.
On YouTube.
Simon, I saw you said you'd eat this. Are you supposed to eat this, Simon? Isaac, could you quieter?
Oh. Still talking at normal volume.
You can still talk, but like
Yeah.
I would prefer we not be screaming.
I will. No, no, Mike.
Hey, Carol. Hey, Tom. Thanks for being here. Um, so Teddy, I just made you a host.
Okay.
Can you make me a co-host?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Gallery view, that's where I want to be. Hey, Tom, how's it going, man?
I'm all right. And your own self?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah.
I hope it's not too late. So I sent you an email just earlier this evening, kind of giving you the rundown in terms of time. Did you see that one?
Oh, nope, just now.
Okay. That's fine. No big deal. It doesn't really change anything. Just if you're like, hey, where are we in this evening? And does this thing ever end? That's kind of how it's going to
Okay.
work out. So,
Okay. Yeah, looks good.
sounds good. How was your day today? You said you were busy with meetings earlier today?
Well, we've got this is the residency for Kairos at
Right.
in Sioux Falls,
Right.
which of course has been replaced with an online kind of version of that. So I was facilitating a group earlier today, and
Okay.
yeah,
Cool. Was that fun or?
I'm really enjoying it.
Good. Good. I did enjoy the residency that I had here. Like I know it was very much like first week of Kairos, which is sort of like having a fire hose turned on you a little bit. But but yeah, it was still a worthwhile experience. It'd be very different to do that online.
Yeah. Yeah, and all the 6 students in the group I'm facilitating have all done it before, so they kind of know what they're missing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worked out so well for them.
Well, it would be definitely better if this wasn't their first experience with it. I think maybe it would be better not to know what you were missing. So I have no idea. So just to let you know, I'll let Noor know when she comes in. So this is gonna this is going to be, I record this for a podcast later. If you would prefer not to be on that, then just let me know now. But yeah, I'm assuming that you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Noor Noor asked, is it going to be live? And then she was like, oh, I'll put on makeup. Because she wasn't expecting to have a lot of people there. So last time we had about 10 to 15 people here live. So we'll see how we do second time around. Yeah. Carol, are you there? Do you need some help or?
She's just gonna watch and listen.
Okay, no problem. So
I'm trying to find Dan I know it exists, but I don't see it as an option. Noor is in the waiting room, babe.
Oh,
I guess
she
I
is?
should add her. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm just trying to find a way to hide
Hey, Noor.
the non-video attendees.
I don't know if you can do that if it's not.
I'm
Teddy,
looking into it.
it's under the bottom of the left-hand screen, and then by the video, there's an arrow, and then video settings, and then you can
hide non-video participants.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Hi, Dan. Hi.
Hi. How you doing? So you doing, Noor?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you for putting on makeup.
Wow, right in the face.
Well, she's the one that told me that she had put on makeup. So that was her plan.
That's exactly why I'm hiding my video.
So Noor, I'd like you to meet Thomas. Thomas is there we go. Yeah. So Thomas is a very, very academic certified smarty pants. And so he's going to be playing the role of smart person while you are going to be playing the role of amusing idiot, played last week by Charles Haycock to great aplomb. So thanks so much for being here.
So I'm playing the role of what? Who?
Of the amusing idiot. That's the goal is to have. You
I
didn't
don't
watch
know
the
that you
preview?
watched the promo, babe.
So the idea is to have like a smart person and then a comedian, because the comedian like sees things in the same twisted way that I do, which is that it's sort of funny that a lot of people get eaten by lions in this story. Like, and whereas like a regular person might be like, that's just terrible. Why are you laughing at the people being eaten by lions? And I'm like, actually, it's super funny. And yeah. So how's life in Toronto?
Oh man, it's going, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard everywhere, honestly.
Yeah.
Only leave the house when I need to. Didn't think it would get to me as much as it has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know, I'm doing it. We're doing it.
That's part of the thing. None of us really have a choice in this. It's either because like once a week, I feel like we have this conversation with our kids or with ourselves to be like, you know, like, well, all we can do is put one foot in front of the other. There's not a whole lot of options of things to do. So, yeah, but I am definitely missing like everything that I do, like for fun or for a living, involves groups of people in a room together. So, like, you can always go back to accounting. Have you ever thought about doing that?
That's the thing. It's so hard going out every single night with seeing people and performing to live audiences and feeling that adrenaline rush to sitting at home and doing nothing.
Yeah. It's not nearly the same, you know? Yeah, it's, and like, do you have a roommate or anything like that?
No, I live by myself.
Oh, I don't know. What do you guys think? Would that be easier or harder to live by yourself versus living with other people?
I think you could get really squirrely really fast, like do really idiosyncratic things without another human being saying, why are you doing that? I think you could start to get a little odd. Yeah.
Well, and we're past the point where it's just like, it's kind of fun to be like, I haven't worn pants in a week and a half, right? Like that's not necessarily fun anymore, you know? But I mean, now it's just a way of being in the world. So
yeah, I find that the days that I get dressed and I put on pants and I put on makeup, like I actually feel good about myself and I feel like my old self, and it's like it's an effort, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, and even that's part of this show. It's just like I have to do something, you know, like it's, you know, like there's only so much, you know, like, yeah, I'm just like, I have to figure out some way to not go insane. And I think that Teddy was also wanted me to do something so that I would stop driving her insane. So, yeah.
So, Teddy, I'm guessing that you're married today?
Yes, sorry. This is my wife, Teddy. Sorry, Noor.
It's okay. I'm learning as I go. Nice to meet you, Teddy. I love all the knitting supplies you have back there. That looks fun.
Yes, I'm well stocked.
I love it.
They used to call it hoarding, and now it's just being prepared.
Yes, you were ready for this quarantine. I love it.
Yeah, she was equipped with hobbies that didn't involve going outside, so it was a great advantage. And this episode is brought to us by Craft Evangelist. That's Teddy's online company. So, I know we've got people watching on YouTube. I know that we've got people here. So, we're just going to get going because it's about that time. So just to let everybody know, this is a live show that is going to be recorded. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. And I want to thank everyone who's here either on or off line. So I put this up last Thursday, and as of like today, we have like 419 subscribers to the podcast already, which is pretty dope. So so continue to it really makes a difference if you share this with other people. And I'll have another call to action later. But to me, I don't know if that's a good news to you guys. It's good news to me because it reminds us that we're not all just shouting things out to the void. So I'm going to I just want to welcome everybody here, either here or on YouTube to the live show, and then we'll get going. So I have theme music. I don't know how it's going to sound, but we have theme music this week, and then I'll introduce you guys, Tom and Noor, and then we'll jump into our story from there. All right, everybody okay? All right. Whoops.
Wait, I have a question.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
Are we recording? So the video is now on YouTube.
Yes.
Is it going to stay? What is happening?
I can do the. So it's there right now. I can take it down if you would prefer. And then what I did last week was I edited it. So there was this part was gone, and then I put up a more cohesive show. And in all honesty, that's gotten 30 views, and I think 5 people watched it, as opposed to the podcast that a lot of people seem to be into. So people are into this if they can do it while doing another thing. They don't necessarily want to join in. It's only Carol's and Dave's and other people who want to join in for the entire thing. So, but I thank them, and this is I think we're gonna get more and more because ideally the bigger the live show, the better in theory. Anyway, so or we'll just give up and you guys will all go away and it'll just be me and Tom and Noor, and we'll spend every Wednesday together. Okay, so let's try this. See if this works to give me an audio cue for where to start the show. Ooh, this is where I do an editing thing. Man. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you. That didn't work. But hey, everybody, thank you for being here. My name is Dan Taylor. I've talked to all of you beforehand, but thanks so much for being here. Welcome to Holy Shit, where which is an adult Bible study. So today we have 2 amazing guests. Say hi to them if you can, and if you want to turn your microphones on, even non-video people, to give a big warm round of applause, vocal welcome to our amazing comedian Noor Hadidi, who is here. Thank you so much.
Oh, hello! Thank you. I was prepared to applaud. I didn't know it would be for me.
You're gonna go first, yeah. You're first. And then next up, we also have Dr. Tom Sweeney, who is here. So big round of applause for Tom Sweeney.
Hello.
Tom, full disclosure, is actually my master's supervisor, so he will be grading me, not you guys. So that's kind of how this is going to go for the future. But he's also so we'll start with Tom with your credentials. You have more masters than any other human I've ever met in my life. So do you want to just give us the rundown?
I think I just lack direction. Really. So I did a Master of Theological Studies, which is a first, theology degree. And then I followed it up with a full MA in historical theology. Later did a master's in my kind of what pays the bills, which is software development. And then I also, because I do so much teaching, I did a Master of Education.
Yeah. So, are you a languages guy too? You also speak Portuguese as well, right?
I do. Yeah, I worked for many years in Brazil teaching there, and I taught once through translation, and it was so terrible that I thought even my horrible Portuguese has got to be better than this. And I just went from there.
Nice. Okay. So any other languages or just Portuguese?
Well, my mom, I grew up in speaking French with my mom, which helped me learning Portuguese.
Cool. So. Nice. Okay. So Noor might be ahead on that. Noor, how many languages do you speak right now?
2.5.
Okay, which ones are those?
I speak Arabic, English, and Quebec French.
Does Quebec French count as a language at this point in time? Or
no? I and I don't speak it well, so maybe it's a quarter at this point.
Oh, but Noor is not from you're not from Canada originally. That's part of your comedy. So you're from
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Jordan. I was born and raised in Jordan.
Okay.
Very historical site for those listening. It's
Yeah.
Mount Nebo, where Christ was baptized. You know.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been there a few times. Where the Dead Sea, it's the lowest point on Earth.
Right.
Yeah, like growing up in Jordan, I would like visit there very often, like a few times a year. Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. So I grew up in Prince Edward Island, which is like I grew up outside Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. But Prince Edward Island is a tourist trap, and there's like Anne of Green Gables is a thing that existed that I would never go to. But it's weird to me to think of like people who live in either Israel or Palestine or those kind of places that like their tourist trap is like, oh yeah, Jesus was baptized here. Like this isn't a fake house that we built where we say that Lucy Maud Montgomery lived.
Right. We're not Anne of Green Gables thing, Jordan or Jesus. Yeah. We're giving you the real deal, baby.
Nora, I laugh when you say you speak 2.5 languages because I had a friend of mine who also worked in Brazil. He was from England. And he said, I thought when I'd come to Brazil, I would speak 2 languages. Mm-hmm. But what's really happened is I'm forgetting my English and my Portuguese isn't very good. So actually, I don't speak any languages right now.
Yeah, you go back in languages. That's so funny. Well, I don't speak Arabic that often. I mean, I talk when I talk to my friends who are from Jordan, who live in Canada. When I talk to my family, I speak in Arabic, but I don't. It's for sure regressed since I was in Jordan.
Yeah.
There's most of my experience with Arabic, unfortunately, is listening to other dads from my son's soccer team yelling at their sons in Arabic. Right. Which they're saying the same things I am, but it's just like, that's most of my experience with that as a language is them being like, what are you doing? You know, and I'm like, I'm also saying the same things. We're having a shared experience cross-culturally, being disappointed in our sons being unable to vicariously live out our athletic achievements.
Man, it's soccer is so when you say, okay, so what when you say football, do you mean soccer or like American football?
So I'm torn because I've gotten so into soccer lately and I listen to a lot of British podcasts that like now the words are sort of interchangeable for me. But like when I'm talking to like other North American people, I'll say soccer. Like when I'm just saying like, when I'm saying like I can't go to a thing because Isaac's got a soccer game, then like that's what I say. But yeah.
So in Jordan, we say football, and in the Middle East as a whole, soccer or football is considered a religion. I will tell you that. Yeah. Like when I go home and visit, let's say there's a big match between 2 big teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid, the streets are empty. There's no traffic. It's a true religion there.
Yeah.
Like, people are so passionate about their teams. They have flags. They go out on the streets and they like honk their horns when their team wins.
There's actually in Brazil is very much the same way. With soccer as a religion, where it's interesting. There are so many parallels in terms of like just a church and a stadium being like, you know, and a temple, that those are all like interchangeable kind of religious studies ideas, you know. So all of those things are, you know, like the kind of the theological practice of a religion. Like you can go note for note with like following a soccer team or any kind of sports team and be like, yes, this is the equivalent. This is a religion for you, including and especially in Europe where they have, and perhaps in the Middle East as well, where they have like ultras who are like the fundamentalists of the fans, who are like, we will literally go and fist fight another batch of fans because they like a different color of jersey than we like, which is hilarious. But you know, it's a beautiful thing. So one of the things we talk about is like, and Thomas, I've talked about this a little bit with Thomas, but like, in North America, you sort of grow up with Bible stories in the ether, even if you didn't grow up in a specifically religious household. Is that I like you grew up Muslim, and am I corrected? And were those kind of in your vernacular as well, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
I grew up Muslim, and we do share a lot of stories in the Quran and the Bible. So when I hear names or I hear things, I was like, oh, maybe we've got the same characters, okay? Different plot lines. That's all it is, okay?
Yeah.
You guys are book number 2. We're book number 3. All right. It's a trilogy. The author just wrote he wanted to finish the plot lines. So for sure, like, even though they weren't necessarily the same stories that you would hear, they were a different version of the story. Yeah.
And often, like, literally dealing with the exact same character. Like, the characters of Abraham and Jesus are completely interchangeable. We're talking about the same person, which I find kind of fascinating. But I mean, given that these 3 Western religions are part of the same tradition, it's like, oh, that's why we fight so much. Because we're family.
I actually have a joke in my stand-up where I say I feel like Judaism was a very big blockbuster, and then Christianity was a popular sequel, but Islam went straight to DVD, because nobody knows this, We're on the same movie series.
You guys are the last 3 Star Wars movies. Like, people that were really into the first 6 are like, I don't know. I don't know if these belong.
Well, let's talk numbers. How many? Like, we've got Muslim people. Are we in the billions? I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely by now.
Right.
And the 2 fastest growing religions in the world are Islam and Christianity, specifically in the 2/3 world. And I mean, what I find interesting is, especially like the area of the world where you're from, a lot of those conflicts are relatively recent because Europeans went in there and kind of effed it up. Whereas, like, for centuries previously, like, Muslim and Judah, like, and I'm not sure about Jordan, but I know a little bit more about Lebanon. But like, in Lebanon, Christian and Muslim and Jewish people got along fine for years, for centuries. It was just like, yes, this is their part of town. They have their holidays. We're open when they're having their holidays. They're open when we're having our holidays. So I just, but yeah, I find that kind of fascinating. So, I'm getting, we are on a schedule. So I do want to get to story time. So here's the deal. We're going to tell the story. We're going to take a break in the middle. We're going to play a couple of games, which should be kind of fun for the audience. And then we'll get going. So this is a very famous story relatively of Daniel and the lions. Now, again, similar to our animals in Jonah last week, the lions don't really play that big a part. Like, they're there, but they're not. And in an important part, like, the story couldn't exist without them. But again, they're not the main instigators of this story. So if you were here last week, this story takes place chronologically probably a couple hundred years after last week's story of Jonah. So this is where we go. So this story starts again, though, with the Hebrew people living under the thumb of another empire. And kind of the background for this one is that the Babylonian Empire came and laid siege to Jerusalem. And the Nebuchadnezzar at that time was the king of Babylon and the surrounding empires. And he came to Jerusalem, laid siege to it. And he wasn't as bad as the Assyrians in terms of destroying everything. But like Nebuchadnezzar, like a lot of kings at the time, loved a good trophy. So he took all of the things from the temple and he took all of the royal family of Jerusalem and he brought them back with him to Babylon, because he's just like, I like pretty things and these are the pretty things for my conquest. But he also brought sort of an interesting collection of things with him. And this is how the text actually describes it. He said to the leader of the eunuchs, he said, bring all of the young men without blemish who are goodly in appearance and discerning in wisdom and possessing knowledge and understanding, and bring them to Babylon as well. So not only did he take the things in the royal family, he also brought an entire collection of the educated kind of elite and handsomest and most beautiful of the young men of Jerusalem and brought them to Babylon to be part of the civil service. Now,
4 of
Yeah,
these
but
names
Dan,
are going to
how
be.
many was that? Good looking, young, and wise?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it must have been 4 people.
it's all relative. I mean, we have 4 famous ones, but again, it's relative here, right? Like it's I mean, wise, I think wise is relative for that many, but it's like I was trying to find the equivalent of like where would you find like good-looking, unblemished young men? Like people in Canada, our minds would be like, well, all the hockey players, and like I'm pretty sure Babylon would have been like, no. They are we need a little bit better than that. But 4 of them are famous. We have Daniel and Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah. We're going to know others by their names later. And all of them had, spoiler alert, long and distinguished careers in Babylonian civil service. Mostly Daniel doing dream interpretation. That was kind of his big thing. He served under 4 kings. All of them at various points came to Daniel and said, or either through whatever the circumstances were, and asked him to discern a dream for them, and he was able to, which is a very interesting skill to have. And I'm just like, how terrible would it be? Like, who is discerning Justin Trudeau's dreams for him? Like, if that was an actual role right now, like if he would like call up, like Warren Kinsella and be like, excuse me, I had a dream. My hair was very long. I had that Fu Manchu thing going back again. Okay, so long and distinguished career. So Daniel, so this is later in Daniel's life. Yes.
Can I just say that I think, given what we all know about Justin Trudeau, if that was a possibility, he would totally hire someone to do that for him.
To do dream interpretation?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's poor Sophie doing it right now, and she's tired. She's like, this is why she got COVID, because she's stressed out. She's doing all this stuff for him.
Yeah.
And now we gotta get him one of these people you mentioned. What's his name?
Yeah. The dream interpreter.
The dream interpreter. We gotta bring that back from the Bible to these days. That's my suggestion.
Absolutely. Yeah. We that you could run on a platform of that.
There we go.
But what I find it most interesting, though, like I'm not one of those Western Canadians that just like knee jerk like hates Justin Trudeau, and I'm really not interested in discussing politics on this show that are less than 1950 years old. But what really irks me about Justin Trudeau at this point is that the deeper we get into quarantine, the handsomer he seems to get.
Well, that's the Stockholm effect, really.
No, okay. Did you see the video of him flipping his hair in the wind? Oh my God. I was like, how are you so handsome?
Yeah, I'm a mostly straight man, and that made me feel things that I was uncomfortable with. I'm like, this is totally not fair. So all of Western Canada who is like really mad at him and kind of hates him, I'm also just like, yeah, I'm kind of mad at him too. He's
for different reasons.
Yeah, he's potentially too beautiful to live. But this is okay. So this is not kid Daniel that we're meeting at this point in the story. This is like older, established Daniel. And at this point in the time, Daniel has survived 3 kings. He's serving king number 3, which is an awesome accomplishment in and of itself. Like, because normally the pattern in the ancient world is that if you served one king and then another king came into power, you just murdered everyone who worked for the king previously. So the fact that Daniel has served 3 kings is sort of interesting, and I think relates to something that we're going to see later, which is that Daniel's can still, no matter how many years he spends in Babylonian civil service, is still considered an outsider. He's, no matter what he does, no matter how good he is, he's still not one of them. And we see that in this story because Daniel is overseer of the empire, and they have about 120 provinces in the empire. And what King Darius has done at this point is he's established 120 governors over each of the provinces, and then there's 3 overseers who oversee they each have a pile of 40 governors, and then they go forward to the next, and then they relate to the king. And Daniel's even kind of superior to all of those guys. So we can start to see why jealousy might begin to creep in, right? Daniel is really the number 2 person to the king, and certainly in positionally has a ton of power. And there were lots of people at the time that had a vested interest in getting Daniel out of that position.
so jealousy and corruption seep in, and they start to try and remove Daniel. But one of the things that they say is that they can't find a reason to. He's not corrupt in any way. They can't bribe him and report anything evil. He's not obviously doing anything wrong. And not only can they not find any like political reason to get rid of him, they also can't find a reason in his own religion to get rid of him. One of the things that the text says is that even in his own following of God, they found no fault in him, which is interesting because like one of the things that's interesting about this empire is they were very much a polytheistic empire. They didn't care, right? If you've got 120 empires, provinces in that part of the world, you've incorporated a lot of gods and religious systems. So like, they're just like, Daniel's even so good that his own following of the religion doesn't bother him. So what happens though is that Darius starts to get under the influences of these lawmakers who aren't necessarily the most scrutable and not necessarily the best, and start to speak badly about Daniel, and they tell him to make a law, which is a really easy law to do to a political leader, and that they say, make a law that anyone who prays to anything other than you for the next 30 days is automatically thrown into the lion's den. And Darius, being your average king politician, says, that sounds awesome. I would love it if everyone only prayed to me for the next 30 days. And I think that would be a great test to put any of our political leaders who claim any sort of religion through. Would be like, hey, how about we just worship you for the next 30 days? And if they say yes, then we know that they don't actually follow the religion that they happen to be using for their own political gain. So Darius agrees and says, fine with this. Sure, and he makes it a law and seals it and does all of the official things in order to make this an irrevocable law in his kingdom, that anyone who prays to anything other than him for the next 30 days is going to be thrown into the lion's den. So what Daniel does, as soon as he hears about this new law that's gone into effect, is he goes home and he does what he normally does 3 times a day, which is to get down in front of his window and pray to God towards Jerusalem, which he has done 3 times a day for almost his entire life and still does. Now, naturally, they knew that Daniel was going to do this, so they posted up a snitch outside his window. And as soon as that happens, they run off and tell Darius that, like, hey, Daniel still undertakes this prayer to his God towards Jerusalem and not to you. You got to throw him in the lion's den. Now, Darius at this point realizes that he's been caught in something ridiculous and stupid, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, I don't feel good about this anymore. Is there any way to get out of this? And they're like, no, once you sign a law into effect, you gotta follow through, which is an interesting biblical theme to me. And I want to stay in storytelling rather than preaching, but I just find this interesting because, like last time and this time, there's a complete theme throughout the Bible of like following dumb laws is dumb. Like there's no virtue in following a stupid law, even if you were the person who made the law. Like no one thinks that that's wise. This happens multiple times in the Bible where it's like, yeah, he made a dumb law and then he followed through with it. And it's like, yeah, that's still dumb. You don't whitewash dumbness by saying that it was a law. So Darius realizes this is dumb. And the text says something interesting, that he strived until sunset to find a way out of this. Now, I didn't grow up in that region of the world, but pretty close to the equator. Noor, what time does the sun go down normally in Jordan-ish?
Oh, well, that depends on the time of year because it
Really?
changes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
sunset is like around 5 p.m. in December, but maybe 8 p.m. in the summer, like in July.
okay, so I thought it
Yeah.
was much closer to the equator, that it would be much more regulated, but there was a difference. I just found it amusing that he was like, I really tried, man. I tried till sunset. Like
Right.
it's like, so like a couple of hours there. That's what you got to. So
But might that be a way of saying he tried all day because sundown was the end of the day?
Yeah,
I think of my kids if they were like, "Hey, the PlayStation," and I'm like, "I got wait till sunset," and then now it's wine drinking time. So Darius realized that he was going to get caught, and because he couldn't get caught, because he couldn't figure it out, he then throws Daniel into the lion's den. Okay, so we're going to take a break in the middle of the story, and we're going to play a quick game. Okay, Noor, are you up for a game?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, no problem. So, Thomas, I'm going to ask you to take a back seat in the first game because you might know, you might not, but it's still going to be very simple rules to this game. I'm going to name an animal, and you're going to tell me whether or not this animal has been responsible for the death of a human in the Bible. Okay?
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, relatively common. So how is our connection? Can everybody still hear me?
You're coming in and out for me, so like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a bit spotty.
Oh shoot.
I think
Okay.
it's better now.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. So back to the rules of the game. Sorry. Yeah, basically, I'm just going to name an animal, and you're going to tell me yes or no. Was this animal responsible for the death of any humans in the Bible? Okay. So I've got 15 of them, and if you win, which will be determined arbitrarily, you win one full McDonald's coupon for a hot beverage,
Great.
which will be mailed to you and you can disinfect it. Still, okay, so we're ready to go. And Thomas, you can jump in if Nora gets stuck. You can help her out. So first animal, donkey.
Yes.
Oh, are we stuck?
I think you're a little behind. Oh yeah, you're frozen.
I'm going to, oh, can everybody hear me now?
You're good.
Okay, no problem. Where did we cut out?
Noor answered in the affirmative.
Oh, okay, so donkey, yes?
Yes.
No, there was no. No donkeys were responsible for killings. No.
And
In fact,
I believe you'll find
one
that
donkey
Samson
saved
killed a bunch of
somebody.
guys with a jawbone of a donkey.
With a
So
what
it
of
was
a
an
donkey?
accessory to the crime.
Okay. Well, listen,
Yeah.
if the donkey's a witness, I mean, where do we blur the lines here? Okay.
Well,
He was an
Samson,
accomplice to the murder. Okay.
So just Thomas got a little bit caught up there, but Samson killed them with the jawbone of the donkey. The donkey was previously deceased. So
It was an accessory after the fact.
accessory. I would argue that the donkey did not consent to his jawbone being used in that way. Okay, so donkey, I'm still gonna go with no. Whale.
Whale. Yes.
No.
What?
No. Jonah, even if Jonah had been swallowed by a whale, Jonah was then vomited after 3 days onto the sand and survived.
Whatever.
Serpent.
Yes.
Yes, you're right. A lot of serpents.
A lot of, is that another one?
Yeah. This is
Yes, yes, yes,
yeah, still more.
absolutely.
Yeah.
More,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely. Unicorns.
No.
No, you're right. Absolutely. Lions.
Yes.
Yes. Worms.
Ooh. I'm gonna say yes.
Yes, you're right. There was a Roman leader in the Book of Acts who was eaten by worms from the inside.
Okay. He deserved it, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure he had it coming.
He had it coming, yeah. Roman and leader, villain for sure. Any movie with a Roman leader, you're a bad guy, buddy. You deserve the worms. Okay.
And you speaking with an English accent. For sure.
There you go. Crocodiles. No.
Oh,
No recorded. Yeah. Bears.
yes.
Yes, absolutely. Male humans.
110%.
Yes. Lots of people murdered by male humans. Female humans.
No, we're a good
Yes,
kind.
actually.
You know
Yeah.
what? I disagree. Can I file a petition?
I will point you to the book of Judges, where the other woman who is called in the Bible blessed among women. So there's two women who are called blessed among women. One is Mary, the mother of Jesus. The other is a woman named Jael, who is best known for an oppressing force came in and like was killing a bunch of Israelites, and then he was like camped in her tent. And while he was asleep, she drove a tent spike through his head.
Oh no.
Yeah. No, that was good. She was blessed among women. So that was
Upcoming movie on W.
Yeah. So female humans, that's a yes. A loaf of bread.
A loaf of bread. I'll say no.
Mhm. That's right. Gideon's nickname was bread loaf. And he killed a bunch of people, but no loaves of bread actually killed anyone. Frogs.
No.
No. Gnats.
What are those?
They're like tiny little flea type bugs.
Sure, we'll say yes.
No,
No,
not with those
okay.
either. How do they pronounce this in Jordan? Leviathan.
I don't know, but it's a ride at the roller. It's a roller coaster ride that I've been on here in
No.
Toronto. The Leviathan, very very sharp drop. The Leviathan, not
Has
for the
that-
faint-hearted.
Has that killed anyone?
Maybe emotionally, it's killed me. I'll say that.
Because in Edmonton, we have a roller coaster that did kill people and is still going. Right? Like,
Oh.
yeah, it was like back in the 80s. And like, I'm shocked by this, but yeah, like people died on it and the roller coaster is still here.
Like only
find-
one person, and they fixed it.
Welcome
Well,
to Edmonton.
That's, well, I don't know. It's at Canada's Wonderland. I haven't heard of any deaths there. Nothing happened while I was there, so I don't know the full history.
Mhm.
If you want, I
One more
can-
animal for you.
Okay.
Dogs.
Dogs. Yeah. Allah, no.
No, dogs are perfect in every
No.
way.
Yeah.
Dogs did lick Jezebel's blood from the pavement where she fell after being thrown out of the window, but gravity did most of the killing for her.
She died? Who
Yeah,
threw her out of
Jezebel?
the window?
I think her own servants, now that I think about it.
Oh, so she wasn't a good person either. Jezebel.
No,
Okay.
no, she was bad. She was a baddie. Okay, so this is both for Thomas and Noor, and this is going to be a little bit fun. So I'm going to give you quotes, and you are going to tell me whether or not this quote came from, given kind of the spirit of Big Cats, does this quote come from the Bible, or does this quote come from the recent very popular documentary series on Netflix, Tiger King? So, Thomas, are you familiar with Tiger King?
I've learned a bit, kind of people commenting on it.
Okay.
So I'm expecting the worst.
Okay, no problem. So it's both. I think this one might not be that hard, but this is your opportunity to earn your own McDonald's hot beverage card that you can either use yourself or share with a friend. Okay. So first quote, is this from the Bible or is this from Tiger King? The people rise like a lioness. They rouse themselves like a lion that does not rest until it devours its prey and drinks the blood of its victims. Bible or Tiger King?
The parallelism sounds biblical, so I'm going to say Bible.
You're going to say Bible? Noor, how do you feel?
I mean, you know what? I'll say Bible too.
Yeah, you're right. You're both right. It's Bible. Numbers chapter 23.
I was just gonna say that actually, chapter 23. Yeah.
You cut her off before she could finish.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Completely unfair of me. Okay. Bible or Tiger King? He was like a mythical character living out in the middle of bumfuck Oklahoma who owned 1,200 tigers and lions and bears and shit.
That's a hard one.
That's from First Hesitations, isn't it?
It's actually from the Quran. I just want you to know. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Sounds like
I haven't seen that parallel Quran Bible yet. I'm sure
yeah,
it's
yeah,
coming.
yeah. We gotta write one together. It'll be the next episode.
Absolutely. So what are we going with?
Tiger King.
Tiger
Yeah.
King. Yeah,
Tiger
yeah, you're right.
King.
There you go. Next quote, Tiger King of the Bible. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
Tiger
Yep.
King.
Tiger King.
Yeah, that's Carol Baskin, who did murder her husband, but he had it coming. So next one, Gad lives there like a lion tearing at armor head.
Bible.
Yep.
Yep, Bible.
There you go. Yep, Gad. That is one of the sons of Judah. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done.
Yeah, you don't tell your parents that. I mean, that's
Yeah, I would be
that's
concerned.
Bible. That's some Samson action right there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, you're in agreement, Nora? Yeah,
I am. Yeah, that's the Bible.
yeah. I have a 9-year-old son, and I would be both impressed and terrified. He was like, "Well, I tore it apart with my bare hands."
As you would a goat, right? Because I mean, who
as you
hasn't?
would a goat. Yeah.
Oh no, he's
We
frozen.
all there.
But it's a nice frame for him to freeze on. He's laughing,
I'm
so
a
that's
little
nice.
frozen.
You're a little frozen, Dan. Daniel, come back to us. Daniel.
He's like just in the other room. But he should be fine.
You've got great internet over there, Ted.
Well, I'm plugged in.
All right. Well, I guess I'm the
Well,
pastor now.
He said his Zoom just went down. Do you want to come in here, babe? You can change your name. I'll
But
go
is
sit
it-
over there.
Is it still recording?
Oh, he's gone now.
Oh no.
Is it still recording? It's still live on YouTube.
Right.
Oh,
The
I don't
recording's
have
a
the
little
recording button on mine anymore.
Yeah, that's disappeared for me as well.
yeah. I'm gonna say I'll just record it here, and we'll see what happens. Then at least he can use it later, maybe. So, you're working on getting back on, babe? How's it going? I'm not as funny as Dan. Hi, Jacinda.
Hello, Teddy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm working on Dan's sweater.
I'm also working on a sweater.
This is just the button band.
Ah. I'm doing a yoke one, so all in one piece. It's
Nice.
wonderful.
Yes.
Man, I wish I could do useful things.
Can you not get in, babe? You need to go to the link. I'll let you in.
Honest.
I guess it's a good thing I'm the host now. Because maybe you would have cut off like and dropped us all together. I think maybe I should be relegated to the. Oh, there. You were just
Hi, I'm
allowed to
back.
come right in.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. That was weird. Okay, that's going to be an interesting edit. But thank you everybody for staying. Okay, so we had just done the Samson quote from Tiger King. Sorry if that had been. Can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good, awesome. So next one, Bible or Tiger King. I'm outspoken, good looking, love to party and have fun.
That's Saul.
You'd think.
Yeah, Tiger King.
Tiger King.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. We got two more of these. Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of your meaningless life that God has given you under the sun, all your meaningless days, for this is your lot and life and your toil and in your toilsome labor under the sun.
Bible.
Oh yeah. That's some nice Ecclesiastes
That's
truth getting laid on you there.
That's some Ecclesiastes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One last one. A
Is
lot
that
of
is that a fitness class, Ecclesiastes?
people. Yeah.
That's a CrossFit class, right?
It should be.
But why would you be doing physical self-improvement in a way that makes you miserable, according to the book of Ecclesiastes? According to
Well,
the book
that's all physical improvement, in my opinion. Who are these people enjoying CrossFit? Who are these masochists?
I don't know. People who don't have enough joy, I think.
Yes.
Last one, Tiger King of the Bible. A lot of people think tigers took my legs. No, it actually happened from a zip line accident.
What do you think,
Sounds like-
Tom?
Well, yeah, it sounds like Tiger King. At least I was worried how that sentence was going to land. I was afraid it'd be zipper accident, but zip line makes a lot more sense.
Well, and Tom might have spent some time in youth ministry where more than the odd evangelical kid has suffered a zip line accident in their time. So, alrighty. So game's over. Congratulations. You've both won. You've both won McDonald's certificates, and I will take this internet interruption that maybe God doesn't want me to have games in the podcast in the future. So we'll see from that. I'll try again next week, and if I'm attacked by a plague of frogs, we'll see how it goes. So back to the story before we get going. Okay, so Darius throws Daniel in the lion's den, does all of the sealing. There's a wax seal on the in the pit where Daniel is thrown, and Darius is upset, and it tells us that King Darius is very upset about having to do this. He feels uncomfortable about it. He goes back home and he puts on sackcloth and he fasts all night, which is a thematic thing that happened last week as well, because it seems that the way to show God you're sad is by being hungry and itchy. The two most uncomfortable things for any human being to be. So he fasts through the night, and then he wakes up in the morning, and he goes and he says, the Bible has this sentence that I love because it's like one of the most polytheistic sentences in the Bible, because Darius yells down into the lion's pit. He says, Daniel, your God, the one you worship always, just in case we're confused about which gods we're talking about right now. Can he have saved you from the lions? And Daniel then says, my God sent his messenger who closed the mouths of the lions. Now, in Christian theology, we always interpret this as being an angel, but in my mind, I like to think of it as being a UPS guy, that he was the messenger. It's like, what can Brown do for you? And it's like, in this case, Brown closed the mouths of lions, which is, I hope that guy got hazard pay for that. But King Darius was happy. He was very happy that he gets his advisor back. He brings Daniel up out of the pit. And then if the story just stopped there, it would be an amazing story that just has a happy ending. Like, yay, a guy was about to get eaten by lions and he didn't get eaten by lions. But this is the Bible. So they keep going and something bad happens. So King Darius is like, grabs all of the people who conspired against Daniel. And then it says that he threw them into the pit with the lions and their children's and their wives. And the Bible specifically says they barely reached the bottom when the lions overwhelmed them and crunched their bones. And then, that you're making the perfect face for that moment, Noor. And so then Darius then tells everyone that everybody should fear Daniel's God. He adds it to the pantheon of gods that their nation has, and declares that everyone should fear Daniel's God. And then Daniel, it says, continues to prosper and not only served Darius his whole life, but he also served the next king, King Cyrus. And that's the way that the story ends. Now, this is the question. This is the part of the show that gets a little bit uncomfortable, because I think we're all okay with a story where, guy stands up for his convictions and God has his back. That's a beautiful story. Does it change the story for you guys that his opponents were thrown into the pit with their wives and their children to then be eaten by the lions?
That was going to happen back halfway through the message of the story, rather, which is to say, these people mousetrap the king into passing a law that was he just later discovers was specifically targeted to kill the one honest bureaucrat, you know, in the whole kingdom. They were not going to live out the day. Like king baiting was an extreme sport in the ancient Near East.
Sure, but they're kids.
This is where I disagree with, especially the wives. So you married a bozo, okay? Why do you get to die because of it and your kids go eaten by the lions? Kill the bozo, let me live, okay?
Yeah, this was not my idea. No, and I'm with both of you. I get it. I think it's a really, like, I think you're right that you can't, there's going to be consequences when you back the king into a corner, you know, and the king wakes up to that. You know, we've all watched one of those, you know, mob movies, but simultaneously, like even you know, in the mob movies, there's a code, right, that you don't touch the wife and the kids, in theory, right? Like that's what's made, you know, like the cartels in Mexico so crazy, is that they were starting to go after each other's wives and children. But yeah, this changes the story. And what's weird is that, especially as someone who grew up with the story as a kid, like we became so triumphalistic about it that, like, yep, then their kids and their wives were thrown in too, and the lions ate them, you know, like and I mean, I get it in terms of as a story, because one of the things that happened when I was a kid and over the last couple of 100 years is people wanted to make the Bible less miraculous. So they were like, oh, well, Darius just fed those lions a lot, so they were not hungry, and that's why they didn't eat Daniel. And it's like, okay, but if that's the case, why did they eat the wives and the children? Unless, like, they're just tastier, you know, like as soon as they're thrown in, right? So, you know, you can sort of see how the story goes, you know, like, but it's always been this weird, like, how do we wrap our heads around that?
I mean, I think like the recurring theme seems to be like, because this is not the only like politician in the Bible and in history where it's like not necessarily the sharpest and has evil advisors.
That's true. That is definitely a recurring theme of evil advisors in the Bible. Does this make you feel differently about lions?
No, not especially. I mean, I think they were sort of in a artificial, you know, circumstance, being presumably being kept around as a form of execution. You know, the king can hold that over your head as saying, shape up or it's the lions, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the lions are really to blame here.
Yeah, it's not their fault. What do we I find it interesting. What do you guys just think about this theme of like standing up for your convictions? Like, Noor, like you're familiar in the Quran, are there equivalent kind of stories about like doing what's right and then everything turns out okay for you despite opposition? Or do you have similar themed stories?
You're putting me on the spot here.
Do you have a teacher that's going to be very disappointed if you get
yeah.
this wrong?
Oh, yeah, he's called my dad.
You've got time to call him.
Oh my God, he's in Jordan. There's a time difference. Otherwise, I would have totally called him. Oh my God, it would have been part of his first podcast. Have you ever tried explaining podcasts to a father who is not technologically advanced? It's like, yeah, you got to talk and then people hear it after. It's like weird, you know? It's like, what do you say? Yeah, but listen, there's a lot of stories of like redemption and doing the right thing and forgiveness, and maybe not as bloody as the Bible stories, like Jezebel. I still feel bad for her, even though she's not a good person. No. And the lion pit is a lot. Not as I will say not as bloody our stories, yeah. But definitely the theme of doing the right thing and being just and being a good person and being forgiving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I find interesting in this theme, and that I do find that there is a parallel in our current culture, is that Daniel always being considered an outsider, right? No matter how long he lived in Babylon or what his circumstances were for getting there, he was never going to be considered, and there was always going to be an element of distrust because he's not one of us. And I think that that's very fascinating, especially in North America at this point in time, where we're kind of replicating very similar ideas of like scapegoating foreigners, you know, and there's people who have been here for very, very long periods of time who are still distrusted because they worship differently. They, you know, have different dietary stuff. I mean, like, you know, I mean, obviously Nora is the most recent immigrant. You can maybe speak to that a little bit about the pressure to fit in, I guess.
Yeah, for the longest time, I always like, even as a comedian, just didn't want to talk about being Muslim because I felt like maybe the other comedians judged me, or they thought that that's the only thing I could write jokes about. And I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to write jokes about things that they would write about, like brunch or riding the subway, just to kind of like prove that I could do that. But then I realized, and then I spoke to another comic, and she said, well, if you don't write jokes about being Muslim and about being an immigrant, then who will? Like, we're all going to have the same opinion. We're all going to have the same point of view. And so ever since I had that conversation with her, I've kind of embraced my identity more on stage and being myself. And yeah, I think I didn't even see the parallel in that story until you brought it up right now, of like, oh, this is a person who's doing something differently, so let's ostracize. And that's honestly, that's what we see, you know, not to make it too political, but that's what we see in America. You know, if you're not white, if you're not, you know, if you're an immigrant, if you're from Mexico, if you wear a hijab, if you pray differently, if you believe in if your name is different, then you're not normal. Like, the normal is people who are, you know, white and don't have accents, and that's what's being normalized by the president, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and what I found that fascinating about this is it would just, because like I was like, oh, this pattern is thousands of years old, because we have Daniel who's given his entire life in service of this empire to multiple kings, you know, like, and, you know, like, and yet, yeah, he's still like, well, he's not one of us, you know, like, and I'm just like, so what makes someone one of, like, how long? And it is an ethnic thing. Ultimately, it has to be, right? Because like you know, like my grandparents came here from Ireland in 1922. There's people of Sikh origin or of Japanese origin in the West Coast, or lots of different ethnicities that have been in Canada way longer than my family's been here, and yet no one has ever accused me of not being one of us, right? So at some point, it's all like a lot of that is a lie, right? Like a lot of that, it's not about how long you spend here or how much you invest. It's about, you know,
what you look like.
Who and what you look like. Yeah.
It's that question, but where are you really from? You know,
right? You know,
if you don't look like us, then you must not be from here, regardless of how long you've been here, how long your parents have been here, where you were born.
Yeah.
You know, where did you go to school? Like, you're absolutely hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. And I feel bad sometimes because it's like in Edmonton, I'll often ask people, like, are you from Edmonton originally? Because I'm not, right? So in my mind, I'm like, if you're from Red Deer, then you're different. Like then you grew up in a different situation. If you're from rural Alberta, then, you know, and I feel bad because I've done this a couple of times with like other parents at my kid's school, where I'm being like, are you from Edmonton originally? And they hear that as like, well, where are you really from? And I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean that. I meant like,
you all heard it here, guys. Dan is racist. Wow.
No, I meant, are you from Hinton? I don't like.
Right. Right. I can see you recommending the Leviathan to a few people in Edmonton.
Yeah,
that's a really great ride. You should ride it.
Exactly. I mean, the story is a famous story that certainly in our culture that we tell our kids and is often told to our kids as a story that's like, be like Daniel, right? So when I was a kid, this was like an anti-peer pressure story, right? Like, so if your friends are all asking you to do drugs, don't do drugs, you know, because Daniel like didn't do whatever, like kept obeying, as we would say, and received a reward for that. Like, is it still a valuable thing? Like, I think you, Tom, you have kids. Like, is that still a valuable message to be telling our kids? And is this a worthwhile story to keep telling our kids if that's the message?
Yeah, I really do think so, because it's one of, to say, know who you are, and it's that question of integrity, not integrity in the sense of always telling the truth, but integrity in the sense of be who you are, no matter what audience you happen to find yourself in. Don't adapt, to the situation you're in, and read the room and adjust your mask, to fit that, but rather, be who you are. I mean, the great thing about Daniel's story is it's this decree is given, and you can almost see Daniel saying okay, and he just goes home and does what he has always done. There is no, it's not like he does this as I'm going to make a big statement of it and fly a flag. I'm just going to go home and calmly just carry on, doing what I always do, and I'll, wherever the chips may fall. The story actually we like to tell our son is the one from earlier in this same book, where those other three, Jewish boys that you mentioned, they are a very similar circumstance, and they're threatened to be thrown into the furnace if they don't bow down. And I love their response, because Daniel doesn't give a sort of verbal response to all this. He just acts, he just does what he's always done. But I love their response, because they say, hey, if you throw us into this furnace, our God can save us, which is, what ends up happening. But I love the little proviso. They say, but even if he doesn't, we want you to know, Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you set up. So basically they're saying, hey, God can save us. He may not. And even if he doesn't, we're not going to do what you're asking of us, because that would be betraying our conscience. So I absolutely think there's a place for that, because these are then the stories that then generate whistleblowers, when our society needs them. And we need to feed that with these kind of stories.
Yeah. What do you think, Nora? I mean, you don't have kids yet, but like,
yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to be.
No. I was just, I think it's really interesting, and especially what Tom is saying is about being yourself and not like changing to adapt to whatever environment you're in or what you may think people want you to do. I think especially now, like, it's so easy to lose who you are, because it's like you see so much on social media, especially of like, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And also, like, I do think that it's good to question your own beliefs, to know that you actually believe them, and to come to that realization yourself, but to not let other people sway you,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear that? I'm getting a phone call. Oh, there we go.
No, we can
No,
hear you.
we
fine.
can't hear it.
You're fine.
Okay, I removed it. Okay.
It's your dad.
Yeah, he's calling to disagree with me.
No, I think it's fascinating, and especially for you and I, Noor, the way that Tom worded that about like not adjusting yourself depending on the room you're in. This is something that we deal with very tangibly as comedians, And I think that as a comic, we do things slightly different. Like, I don't think it's a great sacrificing of my personality to say, like, if I were to go do Comedy Bar in downtown Toronto, I would do that slightly differently than I would were I doing a community fundraiser in Rimbey, Alberta, right? Like, I think that we're all sophisticated enough to understand that. But yeah, I think if you could maybe talk a little about that, Noor, about like finding the core of who you are as a comedian, as being like, that part of becoming a good comedian, I think, is discovering that core is like, what part of me remains consistent regardless of the environment in which I'm placed.
Right. And it's so interesting you say that, because, I've been a comic for 8 years, and I've worked on my act, and so much of my act is about who I am, right? So I'm Muslim, I'm Arab, I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman, I live in downtown Toronto, I've experienced all these things, and so my act is my act. And people in Toronto, I find, are very, you know, like you said, liberal, open, understanding of that. But then what happens is when I go some places like Saskatchewan, you know, where we don't have a lot to connect on. So I'm up there, I'm doing a set for 45 minutes, and it's not going as well as it usually does in Toronto. Like, I'm not going to change my act. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm going to go up and do my set because that's who I am. And they don't like me. It's hard. I probably got 3 laughs the whole set. It's not easy, you know.
Yeah.
Not this, and not because they're being mean or anything. It's just that, you know, there's nothing to connect, that we don't have a lot in common. You know, there's not. We're all married couples, so they don't relate to the dating stuff. They, you know,
Right.
they probably am the first Muslim. I don't know if I'm the first Muslim they've seen.
Possible.
Yeah, so just like you just have to be you, and there are times where it won't go as well, like for example that show. But for I have to, and it was hard. It's not easy. Like, I went back to my hotel room. I called my manager. I was like, this is one of the worst gigs. I called my friends. It was so hard, you know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those scars, like one of those battle scars that you have as a comic.
Yeah.
And it made me think of like I just gotta make it. I don't want to be doing these gigs, you know, in the middle of nowhere where nobody knows me and nobody cares. And I have to remind myself that when I come back here, the majority of my shows are good when I am being myself.
Yeah.
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 So it's I think it's part of not just the job, but I also life. Like, you will be in situations where people don't like you, and there's nothing you can do to change their minds. They just don't like you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've had to work on, because as a comic, that's why we do comedy. We want people to like us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And there's
absolutely.
just going to be people you encounter for whatever reason, whether it's whatever, even it's just your personality or your sense of humor, they're not going to like you, and that's fine. You have to be okay with that. Because if you try to get everyone to like you, it's a losing game. You will never win. You just have to be yourself. And then whoever you bring into your path, whoever you befriend, whatever you bring, and people who accept you for you is great. And the people who don't, you know what? It's their loss.
Well, and I think that that's interesting too, because you're talking about growth as a comedian, but it's also not just growth as a comedian, but growth as a human, right? Where, I mean, like Teddy and I have talked about this, my wife, and I'm sure, Tom, you've thought about this too, where it's like, there's a part of me that wants to protect my children from everything, that wants them never to be in a position where they're not surrounded by loving, affirming people who, you know, are just ready to support them no matter what they do. But the reality is, I know, and is that that's not how you become a good human, right? Like, one of the things that we see in this story is, this is Daniel. Like, Daniel's probably at least a middle-aged person, if not older, by this point in his life. And he didn't get the strength that it came to continue his pattern of praying 3 times a day towards Jerusalem that day. That was a pattern of obedience that he had built up for decades. So, you know, he was like, I've been here before, you know, like, and I think that that's one of the hardest things to do, both as a human and as a parent, or as anything, is to, like, what level of exposure to opposition is healthy to grow into a better person, better comedian, better whatever, and what amount of opposition is gonna kill you, right? Like, because there's a balance there, right? Because I even think of the immigrant experience, like, you know, I'm sure that there's parents that have moved their kids, like some of my son's soccer teammates that have moved their kids here from the Middle East because they want a better life economically for all of these reasons. But I'm sure that there's a part of them that's like, geez, it would just be easier, you know, if I didn't have to worry that, like, some jerk was going to, like, yell at my wife at the grocery store, right? That's got to be a tough balancing act as a human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
good.
go
ahead.
No, go ahead, please, Tom.
I was just going to say a friend of mine gave me some very good advice when I was first married regarding, you know, children, and, you know, because there's a movement among, you know, many Christian churches, which I completely understand, where you kind of have Christian schools because, you know, to send your kid to a secular school, they're going to, you know, get all this garbage and whatnot. And I see good advantages to it. But one of my friends was kind of providing that counterpoint where he said, innocence, or rather virtue is innocence tested. And if you surround your child with so many walls to protect them, they never develop virtue. Like they may remain innocent, but they'll never have a chance to develop that virtue. That is going to actually be the keel that guides their course, for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Can I just say, as someone who grew up in a religious household, I also think you should give your kids the option to decide, let them be exposed to the outside world, and honestly it'll serve them better for the rest of their life. Let them see what's out there. Let them guide them by example, on it, truly, not by forcing them to stay within the walls and the confines of what this religion says. If my parents hadn't let me be exposed to the world, send me off to McGill, let me live by myself, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Right. And I think you get to choose. Like I said, you have to question your beliefs to know if you believe in them and to what extent you want to have them in your life. But I think it's important for the parent to give them to you, but then let you go out into the world for you to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, and this is a hard thing for me as a parent, because I know that I want my kids to love Jesus. That is something that I want more for them than most things. But simultaneously, I know that the way for me to really get that is not for me to build really strong fences and walls, right? And in fact, I definitely know personality-wise, for at least a couple of my kids, building those really strong fences and walls is going to make them they're going to be so desiring to scratch their way out of that that I'm almost I think of the idea of and this is interesting given the current times that we're in, about the ideas of inoculation versus experience, right? Where it's I think one of the most dangerous things that's happened, and certainly the Christianity that I grew up with, is a lot of the people that I grew up with were inoculated against Christianity. They got a little bit of it, but it keeps them from getting the real thing, and some of them are living in churches and some of them are occupying pews, but they don't have the conviction that Daniel held, because like Tom said, it's never been tested. And like you said, they've never experienced well, why do I believe this? And what do I do when I'm confronted with someone who doesn't believe it, right? Is that, because as someone who believes in God in comedy, you're a minority already. Most comedians are atheists out of the box, which is fine, and they're not atheists because they've thought it through. It's because George Carlin said some things once and they're I like what the smart guy, the funny guy says, right? So, but at the same time, it's so when somebody says to me well, that's stupid, because I've had my face called stupid, by people that I like, and I'm sure Noor's had the same experience. Do I have to punch them now? Because if that's the case, I'm going to do a lot of punching. Right? So I had to find another way to be in the world.
No one's ever called me stupid, but I feel maybe some people, when they're on stage or whatever, they're oh, do you believe, they make fun of people who believe in a higher being or a god. There's definitely that joke is do you believe in God or are you smart? Kind of that thing. Yeah. It's never been personally to you, nor because you are Muslim and you believe in God that you are stupid. It's just the general, feeling that you get from them. And what are you going to do? I just think that's your opinion. I have mine. I'm just going to, I'm just going to live and the way I want to. And right. And honestly, I feel like for me, writing jokes is kind of a way for an outlet for me to do that. It's people may not believe in Islam or people may not believe in a God, but there are people who do. And the people who do can see themselves reflected in me on stage, right? Because, there's a lot of famous Muslim comedians talking about it. Yeah. So, maybe that's kind of my way of not necessarily coming back at them and what they're saying, but just by existing and being, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating, because I've had the same experience just in terms of
you know what? One of the things that I think has really been important for me as a person of faith on stage is to just show my work a little bit, you know, like in the sense that like I'm a person of faith in process. And I think that most Christian comedians that I've encountered like to perform as a completely finished product, you know, like that I'm done, you know, like my faith is somewhere locked in a box, you know, and it's unassailable. And I think and I think it's quite honest for them, and I believe them, but simultaneously I think it's, for me, I feel like my calling with that a little bit more is to be like, it's not in a box somewhere. I don't know, you know, like I struggle with this thing sometimes, you know, and I get uncomfortable when that, and I keep going back to these stories because it's like, what, you know, because I'm the guy who's like, I believe this, but I still don't like the fact that they threw the wives and the children into the pit for the lions.
Yeah.
Like, why that doesn't seem right, you know? And I would, in some ways, I wish that version of the story existed. So I don't know if we've got any audience questions right now. No, I think we're done. So I want to thank you guys so much for your time. This has been an awesome experience, even with the technical difficulties in the beginning, and I hope that we can have y'all on again in the future. So the question that we always end with is this story: should we tame it, toss it, turn it up? Any thoughts on what we should keep doing with this story? Tame it being like, let's adopt some of it, throw away parts of it. Toss it being like, never tell this story again. And turn it up being like, yeah, just crank the story up louder because it's important for us to hear.
I think there's some really important stuff there, both from that sense of keeping your identity, also from the idea that, you know, you being like, just having worked in Brazil and all the corruption problems there, you know, nothing will attract like a lightning rod, the ire of the corrupt, like just being honest. And you don't even have to make a big deal about other people being corrupt, but just you not being corrupt is going to draw all this ire. And so by telling these stories, you know, I think we equip ourselves with the antibodies, you know, we need to resist it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom is so poignant. It's incredible. Wow.
I know he's good at this.
God, how many masters?
He should be hosting this show.
Serious? Wow. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's not a story that I've heard growing up or people around me say, but I enjoyed listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. And again, so I just want to say thanks everybody for being here, everybody online, and yeah, thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and yeah, have a good night and stay safe and wash your hands. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks
so
so
nice
much
to
for
meet you,
coming.
Tom
Yeah.
and Teddy.
And you, Noor.
Yeah. And then hopefully, yeah, we'll meet again.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Noor.
We'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
Noor, one thing that you said that, you know, that made me think of, I heard a great comedian who exhibited, you know, that walking that fine line between including your faith in your act, but in a way that's not off-putting. But he starts, you know, I think really by disarming it very well. He says, so I'm going to tell a joke about God now. And then he like he breaks the fourth wall and he says, so for all the people in the audience who believe in God, they say, oh no, what's he going to say? And then he said, for everyone who doesn't believe in God, they're going to say, oh no, what's he going to say? And he just really disarmed, you know, all the kind of angst in the room. And then he was able to just do a great set.
Oh man, what's his name?
It was Matt Falk. He's
yeah.
on YouTube. He does great stuff. But my favorite of his is Baptism Envy.
Okay.
We did Winnipeg with him one year, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
Matt Falk. Okay, I'll look him up.
yeah, definitely. He's a Winnipeg guy.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. Well, I got to take off. I got kids that want me to do stuff. So thanks so much,
Okay.
guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Have a
me
good night.
too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jacinda. Thanks for coming. Hi, Carol. Oh, you're muted. I think I can unmute you. There you go.
All right.
I'm all powerful.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you could unmute people from your side. That's cool.
Yes, I can unmute.
Nice.
How's it going? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really tired today. Really tired. But
Oh, we're
much
live on
better.
YouTube. I'm gonna maybe stop that. I think I can stop.